thrilled to have a very special guest with me, Heather Stewart, a dynamic force in the wellness world and also the host of the Back to Me podcast. Business with a unique blend of corporate finance acumen and also holistic health expertise, Heather has empowered countless midlife women to reconnect with their inner purpose and also live a life that makes their heart sing. And in today's conversation, we'll be diving into something very interesting into the art of trusting your higher self and tuning into your intuition, and also exploring everything from personal guidance to also the mysteries of the Akashic records. So, sounds interesting, right? Let's quickly embark on this transformative journey together. So, Heather, welcome to the show, and it's an absolute pleasure having you with us.
Thank you, Sana. I'm very excited to see where this conversation goes.
Absolutely. So, Heather, when we talk about trusting our higher self and intuition, I think we know less about higher selves. So for our listeners, I would request if you can explain what exactly does it mean by higher selves.
And yeah, that's a good question. And everybody will have a slightly different feeling of what they think it is.
Mhm.
Someone I was talking to one day, she doesn't like to call it higher self. She calls it her intuition. But if
Oh.
you think about it, yeah, like she sees them like it's because when you describe it, it can be your intuition because your intuition is like this knowing as something that doesn't come to you through your normal earthly senses. So we have this idea that it's, something mystical and magical, but it's a normal part of us. And if we imagine that, or if we understand that we are energetic beings, and the energy, so I'd like to think of it as like the energy that represents me is
Mhm.
much too vast to fit into a body. Um, so so most of me and the energy of me exists in the energetic grid, and I am a piece of that, and I'm here on earth having this human experience. And I mean, we decide to come here to have this experience because earth is the only place where there's this density where you can feel things, and you can experience things, and chocolate. I was having a piece of chocolate earlier, chocolate and tea and all of the things. And
Mhm.
I mean, when we're here, we forget that we're something bigger than that. We are so much bigger than that. And I've been listening to some um, information recently about how people like the ancient civilizations used to know and just understand that, and they would be in communication with their soul self on a regular basis. But somewhere along the way, we forgot. So we all have the ability to talk to our higher self, which is my soul energy, which is the bigger energy of me.
Mm.
And it's actually, even though we think it's not there, it's always trying to talk to us and help us in be successful and be happy and find our way. But sometimes we think that it's making crazy decisions because we can't see the bigger picture. And sometimes we just don't know what it sounds like because we've never been taught. We don't get taught that in school. We get taught how to do English and math and all of those things. We don't get taught to connect to the energy of who we are and to trust it.
Mm. That is really, really fascinating. And when you mention about soul and energy, I think exactly that's what we comprise about. Our soul is the energy, and scientifically we say that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just
Hmm.
transforms to different, vessels. And considering that we are vessel, our soul, it may have traveled so many places or maybe universes, or it has taken different forms. So I think our soul has so much of that cosmic data in it that sometimes, we consciously or maybe subconsciously may not realize that. So I think that kind of may not be directly connected to intuition, but I think, our soul has a lot to say.
Well, and your soul actually does know everything about you and everything that you've ever done and everything that's possible for you. And sometimes we feel like we're stuck in this idea that things, you know, if your destiny is this, you can't get out of it. But you can, you can decide which which direction to go, even though your higher self is going to give you ideas and give you suggestions to help you achieve something. You still get to decide yes or no. We don't come with no free will. We just come on an adventure and see what happens.
Yeah, that's true. Whether talking about your journey, from corporate finance uh, to holistic health, to completely different industries, to completely different sectors. Um, and that transformation is truly inspiring. But do you think that it was this decision, this transformation was guided by your soul, um, or your higher self and intuition?
I think if I think about it now, I say definitely because there were there were a few it was almost like little signals kept trying to get my attention and send me in a different direction. And when we're not taught to recognize them, we might just dismiss them as just, oh, that was just a that was just an accident or that was just something that happened. But if you look at them all put together, you think, "Oh, well, there was, like" it's almost like those days when you hear the same thing mentioned 2 or 3 times. I always if I hear someone mention something I haven't heard of 2 or 3 times, I think, "Okay, something's trying to get my attention to get me to go and check this." So, it wasn't I was when I was working, I knew that I wasn't entirely happy with what I was doing, but I didn't really question it fully until I had a few strange things happen, like driving through a red light and, a report that was on the radio one day. And it was just all these funny little things that individually were not a big deal. But if I look at them now, I think they were trying to nudge me gently to say, there's something else for you that you need to leave. There's something else for you you need to leave. And then I
Mhm.
finally then I finally did.
Mm, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, now moving to one of my most interesting topics, the
Mm,
concept of the Akashic records. I think it's both
mm,
intriguing and mysterious. So, when I was mentioning about the how our soul has a lot of cosmic data, so I think for
mhm.
listeners who might be new to this idea, could you explain what the Akashic records are and how they serve as a record keepers for our lives?
Definitely. And it's so interesting. I know there's the way that I like to explain it, you can hear other explanations sometimes, but the way I like to think of it is the Akashic records. So if you understand that you are this energetic being, this soul being that has all of the information about you, right? It knows all about you. It knows everything you've done. It knows all of your future, all of your past, and it knows all of the potential of what you are. So when you are a human here, every decision you make then starts you in a direction. But if you made a different decision, that decision also exists at the same time in another dimension. It's almost like it's too big for our brains. Our human brains are trying to stay inside these skulls.
Mhm.
And so all of this information exists in the energy field and the information about you specifically. And I think they call it a library to help
Mhm.
us in our human form to visualize it. So there's a library that has all the information about you in your section. And there's record keepers that are energetic beings that I believe, if I understand properly, that they have not ever incarnated in human form. They have taken the role to look after the energetic records. So there's record keepers who are in charge of your specific your specific records. And when you read the Akashic records,
Mhm,
and it depends on the record keeper. Like I know one lady or the reader. I know one lady who, when she goes into the Akashic records, she visually sees the books and she opens them and reads them. But the funny thing is, the record keepers only let you access what will actually help you. So sometimes when you're talking to the record keepers, I talk to my record keepers on a regular basis because you can learn to open your own records and have
mhm,
conversations and ask questions about anything you want, really. And sometimes when I ask them questions, they won't answer me because it's not the right timing for me to know the answer. And when you learn to open them for other people, you know, they you're helping that person to understand perhaps a direction, but still you are it's not like it's not like I'm telling the person. It's the record keepers are using me as a conduit. So what I find happens, so I don't see the visual book. Instead, the record keepers just use me and speak through me. So it would be like you would hear me talking, except you can tell by the languaging that it's different because every record keeper has, I find, a different energy and a different tone that matches the person who's making the inquiry. So some record keepers are very serious and very staunch and stoic. And when I talk to my own record keepers, they're just jokers. They're always playing around and being silly. And I think when I think about that, so my record keepers being very silly, I think they do that to remind me not to take life so seriously. You know, because when you grow up as and you become the role of an accountant, you're used to being in that, like, serious place. So it's almost like they're saying, "Heather, stop being so serious. Here, we're just gonna tease you and play with you until you learn how to relax a little bit." And
mhm.
sometimes they're serious, but one day I was asking them a question, and the visualization that I got was them doing, like, this bunny hop dance, which was very funny.
Oh, wow.
They were telling me to relax.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
does that make sense as an explanation? Like, and I've heard other explanations. That's the one that resonates with me on how it helps me to understand. And when I'm connecting,
Mhm.
I that's kind of the energy that I look for.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think uh, everyone will have their own interpretation because I think data cannot remain the same for everyone because
Right.
it's all connected to their own souls. So the explanation cannot be universal across. And I think this is really fascinating and very positive explanation because there can be many misconceptions around here. Maybe people will ask, okay, is there any physical library there? How does the data look? Because many
Yes.
questions can be there. So, how would you manage these perspectives or questions here?
Well, if someone asks me how it looks, I actually usually just ask the record keeper to answer the question. It doesn't have to, it's not me. I prefer to let the record keeper. So sometime one time I had someone ask me a question that was a very scientific kind of formula question. And he was testing to see if the record keepers were really connected. I don't, well, maybe he was testing me, maybe he was testing the record keepers. So I didn't um, try to come up with the answer because it's not me, it's the record keepers. So what ended up happening was the record keeper said, what they basically said was, "Stop being silly and asking silly questions. What do you really want to know?"
Mhm.
Because I mean, they know you intimately, deeply. They kind of are almost an extension of you. So they were just saying, "Oh, stop being so silly. You know, what do you actually want to know?" And you don't need to, and they also said, "You don't need the answer to this." So don't ask that question because it's not going to help you. Oops, sorry for the noise. Um, so when people ask me what it looks like, I tell them the truth. I say, I have no idea what it looks like. I can't see it. I don't see it in that way. I'm not visual. They speak through me instead, and I can just feel the difference of the energy.
True, true. Wow, great, great, Heather. Also, when we talk about intuition, trusting our intuition, um,
Mhm.
it's not tangible. It's not something tangible. And when it's, there's a kind of hesitation or that trust issue, and many people struggle with self-doubt when it comes to trusting their intuition. So what advice do you have for overcoming the inner critic and learning to rely on your higher self?
When you're asking your higher self questions, um, it will so if it feels like a doubt, if it feels like criticism, then it's not your higher self that's talking to you. Your higher self only answers you with things that will help you and with things that come with love, right? So if it's ever saying you can't do this or you can't do this, it never says that. So that's an inner critic voice. And often when I first started learning to how my, higher self communicated with me and its preference for how it likes to communicate with me and the way it sent messages, I practiced. So it's because we haven't used it in a long time, it's almost like when your arm is in a cast for a long time and your muscles are very weak when it comes off. So you know your muscles should be able to do things, but they're so weak. You're like, ah, how do I use my arm again? So you have to practice. And I always recommend practicing with something that doesn't have a lot of emotional attachment. So don't ask. I had a lady ask me once whether she should move house, and the record keepers didn't answer her question the way she wanted it because she wanted a yes or a no, but they said they weren't going to answer it that way. So she was disappointed with her reading. I said, "Well, they told you what you needed to know, but maybe she was too emotionally charged around that question." So when I ask so to and you can ask emotionally charged questions, that's okay. But when you're practicing for yourself, I had to practice on things that were not as important. So I practice every day, actually. I go to my drawer of herbal tea and I ask my higher self, which tea would be in my best good today? And I don't know why it's answering. Like sometimes we get stuck in the why. Why is it this? Why is it this? Don't ask don't ask them why, because it's probably too big an answer for you to understand. I mean, sometimes I'll ask why, and they'll give me some information, but, or ask it what vitamins to take, or ask it which road to take, or, it's usually I have to be calm. It's best when you're calm and you're centered and grounded, so I practice grounding every day. Every day when I get up, I ground my energy and then I start asking because I've noticed if I'm not grounded first, it's harder for me to get the information. And that could be just me. Other people could be able to just access it quite easily. But for me, I really need to ground and pause and listen. And it might get better as I practice more and more because the more you practice, the better you get, as we know. And then trusting the answer. So even if it doesn't make any sense, even if it makes no sense at all, what if it what if you don't need to know the answer and you just trusted it and then waited to see what happened? And I think because we talked recently on a different podcast, I was taking the bus home and I yeah, and I asked it which bus to take, and it told me to take a bus that I didn't really wanna take. And I just thought, "Well, I was kind of annoyed. My human self was annoyed, but I said, "Okay, fine." I trusted it, and when I got on that bus, there was someone who I hadn't seen in a year who really needed my help, and she was a client, and, that wasn't her normal bus. She wouldn't have normally been on that bus. So I said, "Oh, now I understand." Now I understand why they sent me on this bus. But if I had demanded the explanation, they might not have told me, they would have just said, well, take it or don't take it. We don't care. and and then I would not have seen her and been able to help her. So yeah, we can't always know why. And maybe the fact that we don't know why is okay. Why do we always need to know the answer?
True, true. I think till the time it's not harming anyone, I mean, anyone uh, who's surrounding you or who is with you, I think taking decisions, whether these are very hard or super critical decisions, or even um, planning our daily activities, or self-care, self-compassion, forgiveness. I think intuition and understanding our soul, it it does help a lot. And as you mentioned, when grounding, because if it's bringing clarity and direction to us, why not try it out? Why just have
Right?
misconception and taking it as all, I hate that word, the word woo woo. But many people call it because
I know.
okay, um,
And that's because they don't know where to categorize it yet. So they give it this word because they're like, we don't know what it is. So they call it woo woo. But it is true. We What if you just did trust your intuition? This was what my teacher told me when I first started practicing. She
mhm,
said, whether it's right or it's wrong, what if you just trusted it to see what happened? And
mm,
as you said, it's not going to hurt anyone, or don't do anything that would hurt yourself or anyone. And your intuition would never do that anyway. Your intuition doesn't take you into places or things that are going to harm you. It's trying to help you. So what would happen if you did just trust it? You know? And when she said that, I just because we feel this pressure to be right, you know? And so I said, what if we just trusted it? So that made me just relax and go, what if I did just trust it and be had fun with it and be playful and see where it went? And the energy of your life shifts so dramatically when you stop feeling this pressure of knowing the direction and knowing in advance the entire thing that's going to happen, and just trust that you are going the right way and that you're being taken care of.
true, true. And before we wrap up, Heather,
Mhm.
in your work with the Thriving Life method, which you have designed, you emphasize the importance of connecting with one's inner wisdom. So, do you have any simple exercise or daily ritual you would recommend for our listeners, or anyone who just uh, can begin this practice?
Right. What I find is the easiest especially in the beginning, because in the beginning you're not really sure sometimes how or I wasn't sure how my intuition spoke with me. So I always recommend ground your energy. So when I mean ground, so if I'm sitting in a chair or sitting on my meditation cushion or wherever, I just imagine where my root chakra is, which is right at the base of your spine. And I try to tune into that energy. And then I imagine a beam of light or a cord or something going from my root chakra all the way down into the center of the earth. And it doesn't have to be very long. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to be able to see it. Maybe you feel it. Maybe you see it. You can just be imagining that you connect down. And then I take that beam and I make it wider and wider until it's the width of my whole body. So then I'm imagining, okay, I'm fully connected to the earth and my energy is fully connected. And then I just wait a moment and take a couple of breaths. And then I ask a question. And I usually say, higher self, is it in my best good to have a cup of tea? Higher self, is it in my best good to, you know, walk this way today? Higher self, is it in my best good to work on emails today? And but you have to wait. So once I'm grounded, then I wait and I wait and the answer might come as mine comes as a physical sensation, so I can feel what it's like. And I actually practice, I just say, higher self, can you please show me what a yes is? You can practice that too. Higher self, can you please show me what a no is? And it's answering me right now as I'm doing that. And higher self, can you please show me a neutral? Because sometimes it doesn't matter. And then so practicing what and just asking what does a yes look like, feel like, sound like. Some people will hear a voice. Some
Mhm.
people will hear like an inside voice answering them. Some people will see something. My teacher actually gets a visual, but I get a body sensation. And don't be frustrated if it takes a little bit of time for you to figure it out because we're just learning. We're in kindergarten, right? So we're just learning again how to do this. But be patient and ask every day. And when you feel like you've got an answer, trust that the answer is right and do that. Because if you trust it, then it's going to answer you more often. And you're going to get used to what it actually feels, what a yes feels like and what a no feels like. You'll become used to it. You're like, "Oh, right. This is actually a maybe." And I thought it was a yes, but it actually was a maybe. So I'll decide to and you don't know, like you don't have to do what it tells you to do. But I'm always interested when it says if I say, "Can I have is it in my good to have a piece of chocolate?" and it says no, sometimes I'll have one anyway.
Lovely. Lovely. That was such a sweet conversation. I think very, very fascinating conversation on Akashic records or trusting our higher self and navigating the intricacies of intuition. So, Heather, if our listeners would wish to connect with you to explore more about all of these, how they can.
All of the things you can find and ways that I help people are on my website, heatherstewart.coach. And if you go to start here on the top menu, that has everything on it.
Great. We'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes. And Heather, thank you so much for this beautiful conversation and really reminding us that when we honor our inner voice, we can design a life that truly resonates with our deepest desires and our true purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Senna.
And thank you to all of our listeners for embarking on this journey of cosmic confluence. And remember that embracing both intuition and practicality, both can lead to profound transformation. And stay inspired, keep listening to your inner guide, and until next time, live with you live your life with purpose and mindfulness. Thank you.